Hi everyone, and welcome to this week's Week Note. We're now on Week Note number 11, and for those unaware what this is in terms of this format, a Week Note is typically shared every week. It can be shared every month or bi-weekly or whatever you really want, but I choose to do it every week, and it's an opportunity for me to reflect on my week, see what I've learned, and the bits that I'm allowed to share in terms of what's happened in the week, I actively and transparently share. That way everybody gets better. So, okay, let's get into it. But actually, before we do, if you're watching this on YouTube, if you can just click the thumbs up button, that would be really useful for me. And if you're enjoying this sort of content, you can also subscribe if you're interested. If you're viewing this on like LinkedIn or Twitter or something like that, if you could also do the relevant liking or thumbs upping or whatever the thing is for the platform that you're viewing this on, that would be really appreciated because it just helps grow and share what I'm trying to do here. Alright, let's get into this week. Okay, so let's scroll down. This is my website, theclusterconsulting.com, where I post transparently everything. In terms of transparently and how transparent everything is, you can see here in terms of the featured articles, we're sharing our financials. You could go click on this and learn everything. We're sharing the graphs, the numbers, the whole lot. But today, we're talking about this week note. So what's happened this week? This week has gone by really quickly, and some of the things in terms of highlights and wins for this week I'm not allowed to talk about because one of the clients whom I'm working with at the moment likes to be a little bit more secret, and that's absolutely fine. We just won't talk about those pieces. But here are the things that I can talk about. So, firstly, show the thing. I presented, or my team presented, at this week's show and tell, and the show and tell had a couple of hundred people there, which was quite interesting. I didn't really realise there were that many people on this Teams meeting until I looked in the bottom corner and saw like the number, and I was like, oh wow, I'm glad I saw that after I presented. We ended up getting some really fantastic feedback and endorsement from some really senior government folk in the side chat bar during the presentation and afterwards as well. And for me, that signalled a really positive outcome, and therefore we said that it was a good show and tell, it was a good meeting, it was a good session. But that got me thinking, how can we measure success of your work during a show and tell? So for example, if somebody hadn't seen that these really big government people were agreeing with your work or saying it was great, would they have also thought it was a good session? And it really got me thinking. So I think I've boiled it down to 3 different things, and I'd love to hear what you think about this. I think firstly, there's an element about the reception that you get in the room or the virtual room, either during your presentation or immediately after the presentation. So, things in the chat bar, people saying it was great, getting thumbs up, all that sort of stuff. I think that's about 20% of the total score of how good a show and tell or a session like that might be. A gut feel right now, but interested to hear what you think. Next, I think there's an element around the direct interaction you get following the show and tell. So for example, this could be an attendee reaching out on Slack or email or something and saying, wow, that was great, can you please share the documents, or I'd love to learn more about this, or whatever it might be. And I love when those happen. I wish they happened more often, and I'm going to give that about 20% of the total score for now. The third one, and I think this is the really big one, especially for show and tells, and it's something that I think isn't picked up on enough as it should be. In a show and tell, part of the reason why you're sharing isn't to say, I'm great or my team is great, look at the great work we've done. It's also to kind of elevate your thinking and the teams around you in their thinking and your organization's thinking, and people being able to like build on top of that. So I think there's probably about 60% of how good a show and tell or a feedback session or whatever it might be, those sort of sessions, I reckon about 60% of your total success of that in that session is down to whether anyone actually ends up using your work. So for example, if you're doing a more design-led piece of work, you might end up with a new framework that you might be sharing and telling the world about, or some new user needs that you find, or whatever it might be. you might go to one of these sessions and share that work, given that you've worked on that over a period of time and you're now sharing that with the wider organisation. Number one, thank you for sharing that. Number two, if you get good feedback in the room, cool, awesome. Number three, if you get people like diving in and saying like, oh, send me that Miro link or that mural link or whatever it might be, that research link, that's awesome. But the critical bit here, especially if you're doing something that's user needs based, is whether anybody within the wider organisation starts adopting those things. And I would say that that's the most critical part of that, because you can do a really great job presenting it. You can get great reception in the room. You can get people reaching out afterwards. And you could then think that, oh, therefore that means I've done a good job. But if no one ends up using those user needs or building for them or adopting those into the pieces of work they're doing, was that really successful? And so that's what I'm trying to pose here. As another example, you could be working on a more kind of software engineering or technology-led piece of work, in which case you might have a set of new architecture diagrams to share, or you could have some new references for how we display buttons or whatever it might be that's more common that other teams can take on. Again, let's step through these. You can have really great reception in the room, people giving thumbs up, saying it was great. You can get direct interaction afterwards, people saying, oh, could I have a link to that please, or where in GitHub is that, or whatever it might be. But crucially, if no one ends up using that work, so for example, if you've spent all this time creating a new set of button UIs that can standardize buttons across your whole entire organization, or whatever it might be, some common infrastructure and common tools, and it ends up not being adopted, was it useful? And anyway, that's the question I'm posing, and I'm really interested to hear what folks think about this. I'm going to be trying this out in terms of judging success or outputs from sessions like these over the next couple of sessions that I find myself in. So let me know what you think. I'm very interested to hear. Okay, so next we've got lightning talks. So I gave a very, very quick, I think it was 5 or 7 minutes in total, lightning talk at DeliverCon 2021. DeliverCon is set up by some awesome individuals. If you don't know what DeliverCon is, it's a delivery management conference for delivery managers, who would have guessed, or folks in that field like product owners, etc., folks who are just interested in that sort of world, but related to the public sector or the government sector. And this year it was over 2 days. I didn't make most of the sessions, unfortunately, because I found out about it a bit late. That was my bad. I won't miss it for next year. And thankfully it was all remote too, which is really great to see. I listened to a whole bunch of different lightning talks. They were super inspiring. The presenter stories really made me laugh as well. Some of them were really quite funny, which was the perfect mix of kind of sharing really good work and good practices, and sharing where folks had failed before, because that's useful learnings for everybody, but also sharing some kind of personal stories and laughter as well, which is great. My lightning talk was titled How to Build an Alpha in 48 Hours, and was a 5 to 7 minute whistle-stop tour through the story of how a team managed to spin up a brand new government service during the height of COVID-1. I will never forget the experience I had building that out over the 48 hours and then the weeks afterwards. I'm genuinely, truly humbled and thankful for the NHS. During the conference talk, or lightning talk rather, I talked about how I was actually in hospital during wave 1 of COVID and saw all of this stuff firsthand. So it was really thankful and great for me to be able to give back to the NHS in that way. I talked about the 1 year anniversary of this topic, or of this service rather, in last week's Weeknote, and there's also a really, really great blog post about it on the Maytech blog, which you should definitely check out if you're interested in learning more about this. I have gotten some feedback from people that they'd actually love to know more than just 5 or 7 minutes of that. So if you're interested to learn more about the delivery specific side of it, which is where I was involved, very happy, drop me a note on Twitter or something like that, and I'm sure we can figure something out. Cool. All right. So that's it for this week's Weeknote. Hopefully that was relatively short and sweet, and folks enjoy the long bank holiday weekend. Thanks everybody. Have a nice day. Bye.